Alright, here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. May the 4th be with you. Alright, welcome to Civilization 5. I was requested by one of my friends to make kind of an introductory video. She had just picked up Brave New World and was wondering what are some of the new things that Brave New World had to offer. She was a little confused, and it's understandable. This can be overwhelming. It added a lot, especially to the late game. And so hopefully I will be making a series of videos here to kind of walk her and any of you through the new stuff that's been added to Civilization 5 Brave New World. Now, I've been playing this particular game here for a little while. I started a new game as Portugal for the purpose of this walkthrough tutorial. Portugal is one of the new civilizations in Brave New World, and I will be doing a different video on all the different civilizations that Brave New World has to offer. But this video here is going to be about trading. Trading system has been completely reworked. Now, there's still trading between empires, which is more or less the same. You can go into the diplomacy screen, and you can trade. Here's Nebuchadnezzar. You can trade luxury resources. He has some extra truffles, and which if I want, he would want cotton, which is annoying because I only have one source of cotton, so I'm not going to give him my cotton. But that's the same. However, economy itself and the way gold works has been completely reworked. In the past, in Gods and Kings and Vanilla Civilization 5, gold was mostly generated from cities. Now, gold is still generated from cities and the tiles around cities, but it's not quite as much. Where you get all your gold from now is from trade routes. As you can see, this blue line here indicates that I have several trade routes going along this coast here, and ends up in Mogadishu, in Buenos Aires, and finally in Akkad, which is Babylon's southern coastal city here. Now, trade routes are new and fairly unique, so I'm excited to talk a little bit about trade routes, because trade routes is my kind of big thing here. Trade routes you discover as you go through the tech tree. So taking a look at the tech tree here, you get your first trade route at animal husbandry. There are certain technologies that allow you to establish an additional trade route. So you start with no trade routes available. Once you research animal husbandry, you gain the caravan, which is the land-based trade route, and you can establish your first trade route. Sailing is the second one. Allows you to build cargo ships and get an additional trade route. Now, animal husbandry, the land-based trade route is strong in the early game because of how close normally things are by land, and you don't necessarily have to have a coastal city. However, sailing, the cargo ships are how it's going to be later on into the game, because cargo ships can go much farther than their caravan counterparts. And that has a lot to do with how much money you make on a trade route. Now, there are other ways you can get trade routes. You get a trade route by building the Colossus. You get a trade route by building Petra. And I think there are other things which will give you some trade routes. But in general, there are just certain research as you go through the tech tree, which will just give you, in addition to what you have, an additional trade route. For example, next turn I will finish banking, and that will give me an additional trade route. I want to talk a little bit about how trade routes work. So, this is a caravan, which I just built recently. It is a unit like any other units, except it changes a tad. First, you have a home city. This is the city that it will be trading from. Right now it's centered in Porto here. If I hit this button down here, change home city, I can change it to Lisbon or down here to Braga. It takes one turn to change the home city of a trade route. However, I want it in Porto right now. Then, the second button that you can use is Establish Trade Route. This is the main one. This tells what you're going to establish, who you're going to establish a trade route with. So, for example, I can make a land-based trade route with Quebec City from Porto. I can make a land-based trade route with Ragusa. Now, you can see on here, Quebec City and Ragusa both have, it says 9 gold going out and 1 gold going in. This is how it works. The arrows pointing to the left are the things that you're going to get from that trade route. In this case, you're going to get 9 gold per turn. However, trade routes benefit both parties, and so Quebec City will also be getting 1 gold per turn. It breaks down your revenue here on this Your Revenue panel that is open right now. The base gold from this trade is 1. The gold bonus per turn that Puerto is getting by itself is 0.31. Quebec City also at 0.31. Social policies that I have already adopted gives me 2 for this land-based trade route. That's under commerce. And then resources that you have that are different between the 2 cities that you're trading with give you even more. So in this case, you can tell there's one thing. Quebec City has incense, and Ragusa doesn't. So Quebec City is getting 1 additional gold, or giving 1 additional gold to the trade route because Quebec City has incense and Porto does not. So Quebec City is the obvious one here. However, trade routes can also be used for something else. They can be used for internal trade between your cities. So, if you build a granary, for example, I have a granary in Porto, which means I could send food to my other 2 cities. This sends a certain amount of food per turn. Normally, right now, this is 4, but I think it does vary. It does vary depending on the amount of food that and production that is produced by the city, or the size of the city that you're trading from. So, for example, I could go from Porto to Braga down here, which is my newly settled city, and kind of rush either production to rush buildings, or give it more food per turn so that it gains more size quickly. But I'm going to go ahead and do Quebec City here just for the additional gold per turn, bring my total gold per turn to 100. As I mentioned before, there are 2 types of trade routes. The second one is sea-based, and I have a cargo ship here. As you can tell here, this cargo ship has a significantly larger range and can go all the way over here to Addis Ababa. It is actually going to be crossing through deep water, because I did just recently research that. And it will be going around the world the other side, even though I haven't discovered that yet. As you can see, there is significantly more gold per turn here in this, with these trade routes, because of distance and because of resource diversity. Also, sea trade routes make twice as much as their land-based counterparts, just because ships can carry that much more goods than a caravan can. So, city-states, you can trade with city-states. Also notice there's more things being traded in between. If you're trading with a major civilization, there will be science that is passed back and forth, depending on who has more science. So in this case, by me making a trade route with Addis Ababa, which is Ethiopia over here, their capital, I will be giving them 5 science per turn, just because I have that much more science than them. Just through the trade, the Ethiopian traders will see, wow, look at that technology, and they will start to adapt it. With city-states, there isn't the trade of science, because city-state science is a little different. However, you do notice that there is religious pressure that is also passed along trade routes. In this case, trading with Bogota is going to move Eastern Orthodoxy to me, but it will also be moving Catholicism, my religion, to Bogota. I'm going to go ahead and go with the one that gives me the most gold, which is significant. Another reason why my sea trade route out of Lisbon is so high is because I have the Colossus and a harbor in Lisbon. Now, there are a lot of buildings that help facilitate trade and economy. The Colossus is one of the big ones. Not only does the Colossus give you more gold for sea-based trade routes, it gives you an additional trade route right off the bat. So Colossus is one of the wonders that I will often rush if I'm going for an economic victory. If you want a full overview of all the trade routes that you have, you can go up here to this little rotating circle is the indicator of trade. If you click that, you get the trade route overview. This shows all your current trade routes. On the left here it says what kind, cargo ship or caravan. It shows your main city, the city that it's trading with, the amount of gold you're getting, the amount of gold you're giving, so on and so forth. Science, religious pressure, and the number of turns until the trade route is over. Trade routes only last about, well, depending on the length of them, they can last a long amount of turns. The trade route I made this turn with Quebec City will be done in 30 turns. The one I made this turn with Addis Ababa will be 42 turns. After my first trade route, one of my first trade routes here with Akkad, will be finished in 5 turns. So in 5 turns, when that's up, I will be able to select a new route for this trade, and potentially a more profitable route. However, doing trade routes over and over again with the same city, between the same cities, actually creates increased gold as you are more well known. These are trade routes which are available, which you can sort through different things. And when people trade with you, you can also see what is being given and gotten there. So, that is more or less trade. One thing that I should go over before I let you go on this trade video is that as units, cargo ships can be captured. This is very important to note at the beginning of the game, as your first few trade routes are probably going to be high risk to being pillaged by barbarians. And during war, other factions can pillage your cargo ships for quick gold boosts. So you should be careful. When the cargo ship is on a terrain, like in this case right here, an enemy just needs to move over it, and they'll be able to hit a button that says capture trade route. So you should be careful with caravans and cargo ships, especially at the beginning, because they are big fodder for barbarians to raid, and that can really set you back if you spent a significant amount of gold or turns trying to establish that trade route. So thank you very much for watching. Keep your eyes open on my channel for more Brave New World videos. I will probably have a link at the end here so that you can see exactly what other things Brave New World has to offer. This has been Trading, and this has been Jeremiah Prospero Sparks Bachman. Live long and prospero.